the tale of prophet Richard McMagnus. In the heart of a bustling city, where each day dawned with the promise of both routine and uncertainty, lived Richard McMagnus. To the world, Richard was a hero clad not in capes but in the heavy gear of a firefighter, a man who danced with flames to pull lives from the jaws of despair. Yet beneath the soot-stained uniform and the mantle of bravery, Richard harbored a soul restless in its quest for a different kind of salvation. Richard's life was a delicate balance, a tightrope walk between the adrenaline-fueled chaos of firefighting and the tranquil sanctuary of his home. There, amidst the laughter of his children and the supportive smile of his wife, he found moments of peace, fleeting respites from the demands of his profession. However, even in these moments, a part of him yearned for something more, a deeper connection to a part of himself left unexplored. This uncharted territory of Richard's spirit found its map in the martial arts, a passion ignited in the innocence of youth, then smothered by the responsibilities of adulthood, only to be rekindled in the heart of a man seeking more from life. As Richard returned to the dojo, he stepped into a world that contrasted starkly with the one he knew. Here, amidst the mats and the mirrored walls, he wasn't Firefighter McMagnus. He was simply Richard, a man among others, all seeking mastery over themselves before any opponent. Yet this return was not the triumphant homecoming he had envisioned. Surrounded by younger, more agile practitioners, Richard felt the weight of his years and the rust of his long-dormant skills. Each session was a battle, not just against the physical prowess of his sparring partners, but against the creeping doubts that whispered of lost potential and time's relentless march. The dojo, once a refuge, began to mirror the stresses of his work life. Where he sought peace, he found frustration. Where he looked for growth, he saw only the gap widening between him and the youthful vitality of his peers. This struggle bled into his life outside the mats, casting shadows of doubt over the joyous moments with his family and the pride in his professional accomplishments. It was amidst this turmoil that Richard's path took an unexpected turn. A casual conversation with a colleague over the roar of a fire engine's engine opened the door to a world Richard had never considered. His friend spoke of the Church of Wristlocks, a community that approached martial arts not just as a physical endeavor, but as a spiritual journey. Skeptical yet intrigued, Richard found himself drawn to the idea, a flicker of hope in the dimming light of his martial arts journey. With a mix of curiosity and a dash of desperation, Richard decided to attend a sermon, stepping into the Church of Wristlocks with the same courage that had carried him into burning buildings. There, amidst the congregation of fellow seekers, Richard listened as the preacher spoke not of victories and defeats, but of journeys and growth, of embracing the path of martial arts as one embraces life itself, with patience, humility, and an open heart. This message, simple yet profound, struck a chord within Richard. It was a perspective shift, a reframing of his martial arts practice from a battleground of competition to a path of personal enlightenment. For the first time in months, Richard felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a clearing of the clouds that had shadowed his passion. As Richard left the Church of Wristlocks that day, he carried with him a newfound sense of purpose. The journey back to the dojo was not just a physical return, but a symbolic one, marking the beginning of Richard's true journey. A journey not just to master the wrist lock, but to unlock the deeper wisdom it represented. Richard McMagnus's return to the dojo was a silent declaration of his intent to reclaim a piece of his youth, to reconnect with a passion that life's responsibilities had forced him to sideline. The dojo, with its familiar smells of sweat and disinfectant, its sounds of grunts and thuds, welcomed him back like an old friend. Yet as he donned his gi and stepped onto the mats once more, Richard quickly realized that the landscape of martial arts had evolved in his absence, and so had he. The first few weeks were a humbling experience. Gone were the days of his youth when techniques came easily, and recovery was a matter of hours, not days. Now, each session left him aching, a stark reminder of the years that had passed. But it was not the physical toll that weighed heaviest on Richard. It was the realization that the gap between him and the younger practitioners was not just one of time, but of capability. These young athletes, some aspiring professionals, moved with a speed and agility that Richard could admire but not replicate. Their lives revolved around their training, their diets, and their competitions, a level of dedication Richard could not afford amidst his demanding job and family commitments. Each sparring session with them was a mirror, reflecting not just the fighter he used to be, but the man he had become, a man divided between his love for martial arts and the realities of his life. The struggle extended beyond physical matchups. Richard found himself grappling with feelings of inadequacy, questioning his place in the world of martial arts. Was he merely chasing a faded dream, attempting to recapture a past glory that had no place in his present? The dojo, once a sanctuary of growth and discovery, now felt like an arena of constant comparison, where every tap-out and every failed technique chipped away at his resolve. It was during one particularly challenging session, as Richard lay on the mat gasping for breath after being bested yet again by a fighter half his age, that the seeds of doubt began to sprout into a thicket of frustration. The joy he once found in the artful dance of combat was overshadowed by a cloud of despair. The prospect of growth seemed overshadowed by the looming presence of his younger, more agile counterpart. In the quiet moments of reflection that followed these sessions, Richard wondered if his return to martial arts was a mistake. The clarity and peace he sought through training seemed just out of reach, obscured by the harsh realities of his limitations. Yet it was in this crucible of self-doubt that Richard's journey took an unexpected turn, leading him toward a path he had never anticipated, a path illuminated by the teachings of the Church of Wristlocks. The pivotal moment in Richard McMagnus's journey unfolded not amid the echoing shouts and thuds of the dojo, but in the relative quiet of the fire station's common room. It was here, over cups of strong coffee, and amidst the camaraderie of fellow firefighters, that Richard's path took an unexpected turn. A casual conversation with a colleague, Leo, veered into the realm of martial arts, a shared passion that had previously gone unexplored between the demands of their profession. Leo, with a gleam in his eye, began to speak of a place unlike any dojo Richard had ever known. A place where the art of the wristlock was elevated to a near-spiritual practice. This was the Church of Wristlocks, Leo explained, a community that approached martial arts not merely as a physical discipline, but as a path to personal enlightenment. Richard listened, skepticism mingling with curiosity, as Leo recounted tales of sermons that blended humor with wisdom and teachings that offered a new perspective on the martial journey. The concept was intriguing to Richard, a stark contrast to the competitive, often ego-driven atmosphere of traditional dojos. Here was a philosophy that promised a deeper connection to the essence of martial arts, one that valued personal growth over podium finishes. Despite his initial reservations, the seed of curiosity planted by Leo's tales began to sprout. Richard found himself drawn to the idea of a martial community where the journey was celebrated as much as the destination. Motivated by a mixture of desperation and hope, Richard decided to attend a sermon at the Church of Wristlocks. Stepping into the church for the first time, he was struck by the warmth and welcome he received. The congregation was a diverse tapestry of individuals, each at different stages of their martial path, yet united in their pursuit of a deeper understanding. The sermon, delivered by a charismatic preacher known simply as Master Silva, was a revelation. Master Silva spoke of the wrist lock not just as a technique, but as a metaphor for life's struggles and triumphs. He preached the importance of embracing the martial journey, of finding strength in patience, and of celebrating the victories of one's brethren as one's own. The words resonated with Richard, echoing through the chambers of his soul. Here, at last, was the perspective shift he had been seeking, a view of martial arts that transcended competition, focusing instead on personal evolution and communal upliftment. This serendipitous encounter with the church, initially met with skepticism, began to seep into Richard's consciousness, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the turmoil. The philosophy of embracing the martial journey, of finding value in every step, every misstep, and every revelation on the mats, resonated with him. It was a perspective that Richard had not considered, one that shifted the focus from competition to personal evolution, from comparison to self-discovery. As Richard absorbed the teachings of the church, he began to see his martial arts practice through a new lens. The commandment to embrace the journey of the wrist lock became a mantra, guiding him to appreciate the unique path he was on, distinct from the trajectories of the young athletes he trained alongside. The realization that his journey was his own, that every challenge was an opportunity for growth, began to rekindle the passion and joy that had initially drawn him back to the dojo. Richard left the church that day with a heart lighter than it had been in months. The teachings of the Church of Wristlocks had offered him a new lens through which to view his martial arts practice. No longer did he see himself as a step behind, struggling to keep pace with younger fighters. Instead, he saw himself as a traveler on a unique path, one filled with its own challenges and rewards. The discovery of the Church of Wristlocks marked the beginning of Richard's true transformation. Armed with the teachings of Master Silva and the support of a community that valued the martial journey above all, Richard returned to the dojo with a renewed spirit. The philosophy of embracing the journey, cultivating patience, and celebrating communal victories began to infuse his practice with a new sense of purpose and joy. In the weeks following his first visit to the Church of Wristlocks, Richard McMagnus found himself at a crossroads. The teachings of Master Silva echoing in his mind during his shifts at the fire station, amidst the laughter of his children and in the quiet moments before sleep. The commandment to embrace the journey of the wrist lock had struck a chord, challenging Richard to view his martial arts practice through a lens of personal enlightenment rather than competition. Richard's return to the dojo was marked by a palpable shift in his approach. Where once he had measured his progress against the successes of his younger counterparts, he now focused on the nuances of his own technique, celebrating the small victories and learning from each setback. The dojo, once a battleground of ego and comparison, transformed into a sanctuary of growth and exploration. The art of patience, as preached by the church, became a cornerstone of Richard's practice. He learned to value the process over the outcome, understanding that mastery of the wrist lock, and indeed any aspect of martial arts, was not a destination, but a journey. This patience permeated his training, allowing him to approach each session with a sense of calm focus, undeterred by the inevitable ups and downs of the learning curve. Richard's newfound perspective also led him to celebrate the brethren's victories with genuine joy. He found himself cheering on his training partners with renewed enthusiasm, their achievements a reflection of the dojo's collective strength. This sense of community uplifted Richard, reinforcing the idea that martial arts was about more than just individual success. It was about the shared journey of all who stepped onto the mat. As Richard embraced the teachings of the Church of Wristlocks, his fellow practitioners began to notice the change. His calm demeanor, his focus on personal growth, and his unwavering support for his peers became sources of inspiration. Richard, once a silent observer on the fringes of the dojo community, emerged as a leader, a role that surprised him as much as it did those around him. This leadership role extended beyond the mats. Richard began to share the philosophies of the Church of Wristlocks with others, his words imbued with the wisdom of his experiences. He spoke of the importance of embracing the martial journey, of finding strength in patience, and of the joy in celebrating the successes of one's peers. These teachings resonated, drawing more individuals to the church and fostering a deeper sense of community within the dojo. Richard's transformation was not without its challenges. There were days when doubts crept in, when the achievements of his peers seemed to outshine his own progress. Yet in these moments, Richard returned to the teachings of the Church of Wristlocks, finding solace and strength in the commandments that had guided him thus far. The church had become not just a place of worship, but a beacon, guiding Richard through the tumultuous waters of self-doubt and competition towards a harbor of self-acceptance and communal harmony. Richard McMagnus's transformation, underpinned by the teachings of the Church of Wristlocks, had been gradual, a series of small shifts that, together, altered the fabric of his martial arts journey. Yet it was during one particular sparring session that the culmination of these changes became apparent, not just to Richard but to all who witnessed it. On an ordinary evening, as the dojo hummed with the energy of practitioners refining their craft, Richard prepared to spar with Alex, a young fighter whose prowess and agility had become the benchmark for excellence within the dojo. The match was anticipated with a mix of excitement and apprehension, for many remembered the days when Richard, despite his determination, would find himself outmatched by Alex's dynamism. However, as the sparring commenced, it was clear that this encounter would be unlike those that had preceded it. Richard, embodying the art of patience he had come to embrace, moved with a calmness and deliberation that contrasted sharply with the aggressive tempo he once attempted to match. Each of Alex's advances was met not with forceful resistance, but with strategic positioning and timing. The lessons of the Church of Wristlocks manifest in every block, every maneuver. The turning point came when Richard, seizing an opportunity presented by Alex's overextended reach, executed a wrist lock with such precision and fluidity that the move seemed less a technique and more an expression of art. The dojo fell silent as Alex tapped out, a gesture of respect to a well-played technique. This moment was more than a personal victory for Richard. It was a testament to the power of embracing the martial journey with patience and humility. Richard had not only held his own against a formidable opponent, but he had also done so by adhering to the principles that had reshaped his approach to martial arts. The session ended with applause, not just for the technique displayed, but for the spirit in which the match was conducted. Richard's peers, many of whom had observed his evolution over the months, recognized the significance of this breakthrough. It was a clear demonstration of how the philosophy of the Church of Wristlocks, particularly the commandments to embrace the journey and cultivate patience, could transform practice into something transcendent. In the days that followed, Richard found himself reflecting on the match, not with the ego-driven pride of victory, but with a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought him to this point. He realized that the true breakthrough was not the wrist lock itself, but the ability to apply the teachings of the Church of Wristlocks in the heat of competition to remain centered and patient in the midst of challenge. Richard's breakthrough became a topic of discussion within the dojo, inspiring conversations about the deeper meaning of martial arts practice and the value of approaching challenges with patience and a focus on personal growth. For Richard, the experience reinforced his commitment to the path he had chosen, a path marked by continuous learning, community support, and the pursuit of enlightenment through the art of the wrist lock. The days following Richard McMagnus's breakthrough moment in the dojo were marked by a subtle but undeniable shift in the atmosphere around him. His peers, who had witnessed the embodiment of patience and strategy, overcoming youthful vigor, began to approach him with questions, seeking insights not just into techniques, but into the philosophy that underpinned his approach. Richard, once a solitary figure on his martial journey, found himself at the center of a growing circle of practitioners, eager to learn from his experience. This new role was not one Richard had anticipated, nor was it one he assumed lightly. The teachings of the Church of Wristlocks, particularly the commandments to embrace the journey of the wristlock, cultivate the art of patience, and celebrate the brethren's victories, had deeply influenced his perspective on martial arts and life. Sharing these teachings became Richard's way of giving back to the community that had become his second family. Richard's sessions, initially informal gatherings on the mats after regular classes, evolved into structured seminars where he shared not only the technical aspects of wristlocks, but also the philosophical principles that guided his practice. He spoke of the importance of viewing each training session as an opportunity for growth, of seeing each challenge as a teacher, and of approaching competition with a spirit of camaraderie rather than rivalry. But Richard's influence extended beyond the dojo. Recognizing the broader applicability of the Church of Wristlock's teachings, he began to incorporate these lessons into his work as a firefighter, sharing them with colleagues facing the stresses and challenges of their demanding profession. Richard's calm demeanor, his ability to remain focused under pressure, and his unwavering support for his team became hallmarks of his leadership, traits that he attributed to his martial arts practice and the philosophical teachings he had embraced. As Richard's reputation as a mentor and leader grew, so too did his involvement with the Church of Wristlocks. Invited to speak at church gatherings, Richard shared his journey with a wider audience, his story a testament to the transformative power of the church's teachings. The congregation, drawn from all walks of life, found inspiration in Richard's words, seeing in his experiences a reflection of their own struggles and aspirations. Richard's teachings, rooted in the principles of the Church of Wristlocks, emphasized the unity of purpose among practitioners. He reminded his students and peers that each person's journey was unique, but the destination, a deeper understanding and mastery of oneself through the practice of martial arts, was shared. The victories of one, he taught, were victories for all, a principle that fostered a deep sense of community and mutual respect. The culmination of Richard's transformation came during an annual martial arts tournament, an event that drew competitors from across the region. Richard, participating not as a competitor but as a coach and mentor, watched as his students, guided by the principles he had instilled in them, competed with skill, respect, and humility. Win or lose, each match was approached with the grace and patience that had become the hallmark of Richard's teachings. In the aftermath of the tournament, as the dojo celebrated the achievements of its members, Richard reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The accolades and trophies were a testament to the technical skills honed on the mats, but the true measure of success, Richard realized, lay in the growth of the community, in the bonds forged through shared struggle and triumph. Richard McMagnus, once a solitary seeker on the martial path, had emerged as a beacon of wisdom and leadership, his legacy not defined by personal victories, but by the lives he had touched and the community he had helped build. His story, a testament to the transformative power of patience, humility, and unity, continued to inspire, a reminder that the greatest strength lies in the journey shared, the legacy of Prophet Richard McMagnus. As the seasons turned, marking the passage of time, with the quiet persistence that defines all journeys, the legacy of Richard McMagnus within the martial arts community and the Church of Wristlocks solidified, transcending the boundaries of the dojo to touch lives far beyond its mats. Richard, once a seeker of personal growth and mastery, had become Prophet Richard McMagnus, a beacon of wisdom, patience, and unity. In the years following his transformation, Richard's life took on a rhythm governed by the principles he had embraced. The dojo, a place where he had once grappled with self-doubt and competition, became a sanctuary not just for him, but for all who sought refuge in the teachings of the Church of Wristlocks. Richard's role as a mentor, once informal and tentative, had evolved into a vocation marked by the joy of sharing the journey with others. His teachings, a blend of martial technique and philosophical wisdom, drew practitioners from diverse backgrounds, each drawn to the promise of a martial practice that offered not just physical prowess, but a path to personal enlightenment. Richard's seminars, often filled with laughter and lightheartedness, belied the depth of the lessons imparted, lessons that resonated with novices and seasoned fighters alike. The legacy of Prophet Richard McMagnus was not measured in trophies or accolades, but in the quiet moments of revelation experienced by his students, in the bonds forged on the mats, and in the community that had grown around the principles of the Church of Wristlocks. His journey had become a testament to the transformative power of embracing one's path with an open heart, a lesson that extended beyond the dojo to touch all aspects of life. Richard's influence reached into the fire station, where his calm demeanor and unwavering support became the hallmark of his leadership. Colleagues, once unaware of his martial arts practice, now sought his advice, finding in his words the strength to face their own challenges with grace and resilience. The wisdom Richard shared, born of his journey through doubt and discovery, offered a guiding light, a reminder of the strength that lies in patience, humility, and the support of one's community. As Richard looked back on the path he had walked, from the uncertainty of his return to martial arts to the peace and understanding he had found, he saw not a journey defined by individual achievement, but by the lives he had touched. His story, woven into the fabric of the Church of Wristlocks and the martial arts community, continued to inspire a narrative of growth, challenge, and the enduring search for meaning. Prophet Richard McMagnus's legacy was a living one, embodied in the practice and philosophy of those he had taught, a legacy that would endure as long as the principles of the wristlock were practiced. In the legacy of Richard McMagnus, the martial arts community found not just a mentor, but a symbol of the journey itself, a reminder that the greatest victories are often found not on the podium, but in the quiet triumphs of the spirit.